Good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to see so many familiar faces at Avid Learning and also new faces who join us together to explore yet another chapter of our maximum city, Mumbai. My name is Asad Lalji. I'm the CEO of Avid Learning. One of Avid Learning's key programming philosophies is reimagining the familiar with fresh eyes, spotlighting heritage as a dynamic part of contemporary urban life. My tryst with Mumbai began with our iconic Multipolis Mumbai series in 2012, where we did 57 episodes. Many of those programs happened in this very venue. This led to the Urban Legacies series started in 2021, which dwelled into the diverse narratives of the Jewish, Iranian, and many other communities and how they shaped the trading port city of Bombay. Last year, we shifted our focus to precincts to create areas that create a sense of place and explored Shivaji Park, Gamdevi, Kotachivari, many others through exciting discussions and enriching walkthroughs. For our third iteration of one of our flagship series, we're zooming in on the icons of Bombay, those everyday landmarks and memory keepers that shape how Bombay is experienced, remembered, and reimagined. And this evening we will ask, what do these urban icons, wells, Dabbawalas, and Irani cafes tell us about ourselves? How do they help define a city constantly negotiating with time, memory, and identity? And that brings me to the task at hand. Avid Learning, in collaboration with the National Gallery of Modern Art Mumbai and the Kalabharu Association, presents Uncovering Urban Legacies, Icons of Bombay, Wells, Dabbawalas, and Irani cafes. A special thank you to Ms. Nidhi Chaudhary, Director of the NGMA Mumbai, and the Deputy Curator Shruti Das for hosting us. Avid Learning has enjoyed a creative collaboration with the NGMA for over a decade, which actually began in 2011, and we've done over 50 programs with them. So without further ado, please welcome me in joining our panel of experts, founder and president, Kamlabai Educational Trust, Mumbai, Dr. Pawan Agrawal. Journalist, author, and editor, Waternama, Bachi Karkaria. Historian and founder, Bombaywala, Dr. Simin Patel. And the conversation will be moderated by co-founder, No Footprints, Harshvardhan Tanwar. We're delighted to have some of Avid Learning's long-standing collaborators, supporters, and friends on this panel. Many congratulations to Bachi for her excellent commemorative volume titled Waternama, 300 Years of Mumbai's Bika Beram Well, a timely tribute to one of the city's most enduring landmarks, and also looking forward to Dr. Simin Patel's upcoming book on Irani restaurants in Bombay, for which she has received the New India Foundation Fellowships and is due for publication in early 2026. So let's get ready to explore these stories together. Over to you, Harshvardhan. Thank you.
Thank you, Asad. Good evening to all of you here. Welcome to the icons of Bombay. I think when I first read it, I said, I hope we aren't trolled because we're using the word Bombay, right? Because that's what's happening on social media these days. Welcome all of you all here. My name is Harshvardhan Tanwar. I'm the co-founder at No Footprints. At No Footprints, it's, we create tours, experiences that bring to the fore community-based businesses, communities themselves, and we talk about them through the lens of tourism. In the city like Mumbai or Bombay, right, we're losing this, the gentrification is happening so quickly. We lose them so quickly that it's, every single day there is something or the other that, we are losing. And there are icons like these that are actually safeguarding these places, one book, one sip of tea, and one delivery at a time, right? So a round of applause for all three of them for coming out here and actually, talking about their work. You guys need little or no introduction, but having said that, though, I'm going to pass on the mic to all of you all to just tell a little about the work that you've done so that we can take this discussion forward. Please.
Good evening, you all. Really, it's a fine evening today. Thank you, Arshadhan. to give us opportunity on this. And you very good that Mumbai icon. And as far as Dabbawala is concerned, everyone knows about Dabbawala. But of course, just in 2 minutes, I'll just make nutshell. You must bring Dabbawalas, not caterers. They deliver home cooked food. They will collect in the morning from your home. Before lunchtime, they will deliver in office. After lunch is over, they will get back empty tiffin same day, evening at home. अब लोगों को लगता है यार डब्बावाला क्यों चाहिए? अब मेनली दो कारण है हर्षवर्धन. एक तो नंबर वन, when you travel in office, overcrowded local train, so it's very difficult for you to travel with empty hands. तो टिफिन लेके तो, और दूसरा लॉन्ग रेलवे रूट, कल्याण टू CST, विरार टू चर्च गेट, इट टेक 3 hours फॉर मुंबई टू ट्रैवल. तो आपको 9 बजे ऑफिस पहुंचना है, तो आप सुबह 6 बजे निकलोगे, और फिर भी आपको चाहता है कि मैं डब्बा ले जाऊं, तो योर वाइफ शुड कुक 5 o'clock. मुंबई हस्बैंड डोंट वांट हिज वाइफ शुड कुक 5 o'clock बिकॉज मुंबई हस्बैंड लव हिज वाइफ. तो अब तो होता क्या है सर, हस्बैंड स्टार्ट 6 o'clock, वाइफ कुक 8 o'clock एंड 9 o'clock.
I agree.
तो मैं मुंबई में प्रचार करता हूं, जो बीवी से करे प्यार, वो डब्बा वाला को कैसे करे इनकार.
I agree. Especially with, either you can enter the train or your tiffin can. I agree with you. Yeah, at that hour. Are we playing the... Would you like to go through the quick presentation that you've made?
मतलब ऐसे बहुत बड़ा है.
हाँ.
मतलब started 1890. It's a 135-year-old business. Just imagine. And 5,000 people delivering every day 200,000 lunch box, traveling 60-70 kilometers, carrying 50-60 kg weight. And this is railway route. मतलब how they start from here, then they will deliver at Vile Parle. Then from Vile Parle again, they will travel to Dadar. Again, loading, unloading. They travel from Dadar to Grand Road. Again, Grand Road loading, unloading. And then travel to Churchgate. Oh my God. मतलब लोगों को पता है, क्या लगता है कि उठाया दिया, नहीं भाई. Every now and then, loading, unloading, coding, decoding, मतलब collecting, delivery, sir, Herculean task, then Nariman point, फिर वापस वैसे ही आएंगे जैसे हो गया वापस आएगा. सर ये कोडिंग है, कभी बाद में बताऊंगा, और थोड़े में 10 मिनट बाद. सर देखिए 100 साल पहले बारिश में तो बंदा बोलता है मैं तैर के जाऊंगा लेकिन जाऊंगा. ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ कि अ सिंगल टिफिन नॉट डिलीवर्ड. 100% डिलीवरी, 100%. और मैम नेवर मेक मिस्टेक. मैंने एक बंदे को पूछा मिस्टेक नहीं करते हैं, तो पता है क्या बोलता है, सर मैं उस कस्टमर को उसके खुद के बीवी का डब्बा देना चाहता हूं, किसी और की बीवी का नहीं. सो मतलब, और सर 80 लाख लोग ट्रैवल करते हैं लोकल ट्रेन में. प्रिंस चार्ल्स आए, शादी में बुलाया. सोचिए आप, भारत से ओनली 3 लोग, थोड़ा और बताऊंगा बाद में. मतलब ऐसे कई, मतलब, तो व्हाट आई मीन टू से सर, दे रियली लव टू वर्क. दैट इज ओनली थिंग्स. एक नशा है, जुनून है, 135 साल से कर रहा है. दैट इज
Correct. Thank you so much, Doctor. Over to you, Bachi.
Well, hi, I'm Bachi Karkaria, and my latest work is this, which is Waternama. It's actually a collection of 32 erudite expert articles around the theme of water. And the reason was that it's 300 years of the Bhika Bairam well, which, how many of you know where it is? Well, that's nice to know. Okay, all right. Because the thing is that everyone passes and rushes. I mean, not only Dabbawalas rush in Mumbai, everybody rushes. And many people said, well, where is this well? So I hope that now after a discussion like this, and maybe when you say they're going to rename that chalk, people will think about it. So it's been there 300 years. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But what I really wanted to do was I wanted to expand it from beyond just the tricentenary, which was important enough, but I wanted to kind of work around the whole theme of water, its secular and spiritual importance. And it's amazing, Harshvardhan, how much I learned in the course of the book. Because I knew that I wouldn't be able to do justice in the time that I had, and there were great experts. So, you know, we've got doctors, we've got mythologists. Have we got those? Here we are. So, all right. So this is, I had Devdutt Patnaik, who everybody knows, the mythologist, writing about the whole mythology of water and how important it is in every mythology. And this is Ganga riding on the dolphin, and who actually gives the chance to the dead to get a meritorious rebirth. Then this is the woman who absolutely fascinated me about this book. She is Ardvisura Anahita. I kind of vaguely knew, I'm sorry, I was this imposter who was asked to do this book, but I kind of vaguely knew about, well, I knew Ava Yazad, there is a Parab, I know Parsis go to Parsi Gate, and of course they eat dar nipori, since there is no Parsi event without food. So, but I kind of learned the whole significance of this amazing woman, well, she's the water angel. And I realized that, I mean, I knew that in Zoroastrianism holds every element sacred, but I learned in this book that water is second only to fire in this, in the faith. And she is the only, out of all the guardian spirits that are there in Zoroastrianism, she is the only one who's been given an anthropomorphic form. She has like a human form. And what fascinated me was that she is dressed in the finest beaver skins. And I was wondering, well, why beaver skins? Because I didn't think beavers had anything to do with Persian, etc. But, you know, they are a cornerstone species in ecology. So they kind of safeguard a lot of other, you know, species because they build dams, they safeguard livelihoods and stuff like that. Then she rides a chariot of 4 horses, and which represent wind, water, sleet, and cloud. She is dressed in gold, of course, and she has this diadem of 100 stars. And she is, well, she's the daughter of Ahura Mazda. The sun is fire, but it is not as sexist as you might imagine, because first of all, as I told you, she's the only one who's been given a form. The longest of the hymns is the one that is dedicated to her. She gives strength and swift horses to men, wisdom to priests, but women are in her special care. So she is really an embodiment of purity, strength, and I think the modern woman that all women aspire to be. So that is that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions for you now. Simon?
So Harsh, I said yes to this panel because Bombay was in the title.
Okay.
Okay, so I've spent many years working on this book on Irani restaurants, and as my small trusted Sony recorder in the corner to the left will tell you, it's primarily, I mean, it's 100% oral archive. So chatting with second and third generation Zoroastrian and Muslim Iranis at their restaurants for hundreds of hours, and then spending about 100 times that time transcribing each and every one of those interviews to create an oral archive. Now, I know people say they're oral historians, but I think just doing that collection doesn't really make you one. That's just step one. That's creating the archive. From this archive, I've crafted short stories from these different restaurants, and that's really the format of the book. So it turned out, actually, that many of these stories are about newspapers, okay? So the newspapers that customers were reading, what columnists they were reading, can you top Bachi Karkarya's English was also one of the themes, and the style of reading also. And then obviously the legendary ban on newspapers and reading. So what Freni Irani, who is a partner at Cosmopolitan Restaurant and Stores at Girgam, has broken 2 rules in this photograph. No newspaper, she's busy reading, and no leg on chair, legs are on the chair. So really I play with these rules throughout the whole book, and it's all about breaking them and how they formed and how they were broken. Okay, this is an archival image from Cooler and Company at King's Circle. And I just want to say that in the cast of characters in the book, there are also some animals, specifically birds. And I focus on 2 fellows, one in Ballad Estate and one in Matunga, who made a real racket and were happiest on their owners' shoulders. but in my cast, I have primarily a host of men, one really strong woman, and two birds. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you so much. That's such a lovely introduction from all three of you. I'm going to start off this conversation with Dr. Agrawal. Growing up, I think in school, I think the one person that a lot of people look forward to, was their, just going out and playing. For me, I think the person that I look forward to seeing the most, as you can clearly see, is my Dabbawala, right? Who would come in and deliver lunch, because I could get lunch at home. But, the Dabbawalas have been such an important part of Mumbai's legacy for so long. Could you tell us when did it originate? What are the origin stories of the tiffin delivery system?
Due to way back 1890, when my Britisher was going home for lunch and coming back, उस समय तो सर कुछ vehicle था नहीं, तो घोड़ा गाड़ी बग्गी बोलते हैं. He was going in buggy and coming back, I think spending 3 hours. तो Mr. Madhu Auji Bachche, the man who started this business, he approached 1892 Britisher. सर आप घर जाते हो वापस आते हो 3 घंटा engage होता है. Can I bring you lunch box? You will save 2 hours. From that day, this business started. In 1890, one Dabawala, one customer. Today, 5,000 people delivering 200,000 lunch box.
It's crazy.
Consistently going on. Consistently. Sir, 100 साल पहले सर पे उठाते थे. You can go and see on any route also. आज भी सर पे उठाते हैं. The reason, work culture. Even escalator, you want to go from platform 1 to platform number 4, they have to pick on head.
Yeah.
Lift on head. When you cross the road, 2 kilometer divider, lift on head. So no alternate. So they are going on.
And who are the people who he employed at that time in the start? I know that he started off alone and then he had an entire, team that he built. So who are the people that he got together?
So they are from almost Nagar and Pune district.
So
मराठी में उसको मावळे बोलते हैं.
हाँ.
म्हणजे शिवाजी महाराजांचे मावळे. तो they were working here and they one बोलते हैं ना कारवा बन जाता है. तो ऐसा करते गए and these majority people are from almost all from Pune Nagar district.
Correct. And, the Dabbawalas, of course, all of you all know the Harvard, has written about them as for their time management. And, of course, Prince Charles came down. And at that point of time, it became such a big news that suddenly you had tourists that started coming down to Churchgate Station. And today, you see more tourists than the Dabbawalas, right, at Churchgate. Please go there at about 11:45 and you'll see a lot more tourists than you see Dabbawalas. So they've become such important legendary icons. Talking about legends and icons, Bachi, I know that when I was discussing this with you, I said that you've brought such important Zoroastrian voices and you really schooled me and said, listen, boss, I mean, much kinder, but you have, you've spoken not just about Zoroastrian voices during your time, but a lot of different voices, and this book is a testimony of that. So could you tell me what was the inspiration behind creating this volume, as well as the fact that you've spoken about water, wells, and secularism?
Well, the short answer to that is that it was the 300th anniversary of the Bhikha Bairam well, and the trustees asked me to do the book. And I said, fine, because for me, the well is really my default agyari. And if you promise not to tell this outside, I mean, you don't have to, wear your full sadra, kasti, all that. You don't have to have all the ritual things that you have to do to go into an agyari. You can just pop in and pop out. So it's a very personal interaction, with your Almighty. Yeah. And Meher is in the audience here, and she's written a book, a chapter in the book. And there is a great sense of faith about it. And so over these 300 years, it has developed a whole mythology about, prayers being answered, because those who pray to, as I told you, are Visura Anahita. And outside, non-Parsis call it the wishing well, which I think is a bit of a, well, it's okay, it's all right. And so that was it. But then I did want to explore this whole theme of water, because I think the concept of water, both secular and sacred, is just, now we know a lot more because there's so much emphasis on ecology and environment and climate change. Climate change is absolutely posited on the melting glaciers and water. But the fact that all these civilizations grew on the riverbanks, right? And this whole concept of, in fact, Devdutt Patnaik has really spoken about how the mythology of water from the arid deserts of the Middle East to the very fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, down to the riverbanks, fertile riverbanks of India, how the whole concept of water became so much a part of mythology. So even Ardhvisura Anahita is there in Greek and Roman legend. And water gods and goddesses, are there to protect all these sources. And how important water is in, the metaphysical valency of water is recognized by all belief systems. So if you look at Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, everyone, their ritual has to have water as central to it. There was the great flood, so it punishes as much as it blesses. Then there's in Islam, there is Hagar, the second wife, some say concubine, of Muhammad, who was left in the desert with her son, and then she couldn't find any water, and she kept, looking, and this child was like dying of thirst, and suddenly her foot strikes this thing, and the Zamzam font comes forth, which is why it's so important, a part of the whole Hajj ceremony, ritual. And then Christ's baptism, he started. I beg your pardon, can I continue? Yes, thank you very much for that. Thank you. And so there's the whole baptism of Christ. And it's like throughout, that the whole water. And in Zoroastrianism, water is so important. You're going to talk about wells, and maybe I'll talk to you about it then. So this whole business of, and then there's this, the recent, also finding that the molecules of water, that they change depending upon the moods of the human beings who are near it. So if there's positive energy, the molecules take on a nice and pleasant form. And if they are, again, with bad energy, the molecules actually change. Okay. And the point is that you can even alter the molecules of bad water by faith and prayer and positive energy. So, it's a whole undiscovered,
Yeah, I know. And closer home also, we have the East Indians that do the Umbracha Pani, which is such an important part of their wedding ritual. So I think wells have played a clear role, talking about positive vibes, of course, coming down towards the place that gives us the most positive vibes and a lot of calories, right, is Irani Cafe. So, Simin, you've worked, on your book, and you've been such a voice for the cafes. And I know that when migrants come in, I think there are two ways that they reclaim space. One is, of course, religion being a very important one, and the second is food, right, when they reclaim identity. So can you tell me a little about, when the Iranis came in, how did they set up, or the Zoroastrians, when they came in, how did they set up these cafes across the city? So what are the origins?
So you're right in the sense that they are Iranis, and some are Zoroastrian and some are Muslim, and they're also called Mughal, though sometimes Muslim Iranis, I think, Raza, object to being called Mughals. They prefer just being called Muslim Iranis. So there are two communities that come, but the ones that are affiliated with the restaurants all come as almost as refugees. So they're religious refugees, they're largely economic refugees, and they come in like really poor conditions. So you work in a restaurant because you can live in a restaurant. You don't need accommodation. And you never start out as a partner of a restaurant. You start out as the kitchen staff, as the cleaner, as the waiter, then maybe you become the cashier, and then you, what they call, graduate to partnership. So Britannia is probably the only example of a restaurant that is family owned from the beginning. Otherwise, you've come in low, you've got partnership, and then you can be partners in about 14 restaurants back in the day. And you'll be like a sleeping partner where you're not really active in the running of the restaurant, or you can be a conducting partner sitting on the galla and making your presence felt. And this wave, for example, there were Muslim Iranis in Bombay who were very well settled because they were horse traders, they were merchants. This is all in the 1800s. But these guys who come, this is the same story for the Udupis, all these kind of folk, they come as as almost semi-refugee kind of status. And they do extraordinarily well. Most of them were even illiterate. And by the second generation, their sons are being sent to posh boarding schools in Darjeeling and Panchgani and stuff like that. So that kind of first to second generation was enormous, shift.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, of course, you do mention it and about the owners, right? I think outside of school, if I've ever been shouted at, it's probably the owners of Irani cafes. I think most of you all have. But, it comes to a very also important question as Irani cafe spaces and inclusive spaces, because you often talk about a time when there's a lot of segregation that's been in the news. But, Irani cafes, whether it's, for queer folks, for instance, we were doing a research on our tour, the Queer Day Out, and we realized Irani cafes were a great place to kind of meet people. But you want to talk about the same lens of secularism and Irani cafes in the same breath, I think, go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the most unusual information I got on this one kind of gangster was actually through a book called The Prostitutes of Falkland Road by Mary Ellen Mark, who is a very well-known photojournalist who spent a lot of time at Falkland Road in the 80s, living with the sex workers, and then they gave her access to their lives. And on Falkland Road, there was an Irani restaurant called Olympia, and they spent a lot of time there, and she shot them there. So we went walking on Falkland Road trying to find Olympia. Olympia has become a hardware store, but one of the madams said, go ahead. So we go towards the end of it, and there's a Bharat coffee house that's still there, and that cashier got us in touch with the Don's son, who's still the Don was shot in the 50s. So we got our most unique story and most unique archive. There's a whole photo archive in the book of that Don's funeral through Bombay, through the Irani masjid and stuff like that. And that came from a book on sex workers in Falkland Road. So absolutely, I mean, these spaces are open, are free, and there's so much room for animals, for, the love for animals in the area. Also hobbyists, they also breed animals. There is an aviary on top of Cooler and Company in Matunga even today. If you don't want to go to the Baikala Zoo, you can go to King's Circle, Matunga. So, I mean, there are all kinds of creatures. I mean, yeah, exactly. Kokino, his Rottweiler, is buried on the sidewalk. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, absolutely. So, all creatures.
And there was you didn't have to reserve a table. You could sit with whoever, and sometimes you're forced to share a table. So, it's interesting. A cop and a Don on the same table. Interesting, I think. Yeah. Coming to talk more interesting, sir, I have to ask you, after this very James Bond-esque thing, right, that the Dabbawalas do, which no one knows. And today you're going to be, of course, telling us a little secret, because how you all reach from one place to another without messing up your tiffins is miraculous, so much so that they did it wrong once and there was a movie made out of it, right? So how does this coding take place? Because there are certain codes that do exist in the delivery system. So how do these codings take place?
See, before that, I'll just share you. Coding we do over here.
Huh.
And this coding, what speaks? Yes, this is. Now, for example, this is canistro. Now, this is VLP, stand for Ville Parle, the residential area of customer. Yeah. And E, the man, Dabbawala, who picked tiffin from Ville Parle. Okay. And number 3 called Nariman Point. So, E number ka banda, he will pick from Ville Parle. And if you know my map, from Ville Parle, it will go to Dadar. Again, it will mix. From Dadar, it will go to Grant Road. Again, it will mix. Then from Dadar, it will go to Grant Road, Churchgate. And from Churchgate, it will go to Nariman Point. From different hub station, different people. And when it goes to Nariman Point, who will pick this lunch box? Mr. 9 Dabbawala. He will pick and he will deliver EX call Express Tower, 12 call 12th floor. Because this customer office is on 12th floor. Without name address.
Correct.
Some people look in D'Souza.
Yeah.
Who written this name? Mr. D'Souza, customer writing his own name because Mr. Customer D'Souza could not recognize his own tiffin. What is my message, my dear friends? Customer may not be knowing, but Dabbawala no customer, that's a business.
Correct. Incredible. You're absolutely right. I don't think I think this takes a lot of learning. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I will start from before 100 years. Very first they started with color thread.
Correct.
मतलब ब्लू येलो रेड ऐसा हमारे पुराने बोलते थे कि मुंबई 3.5 गांव की मुंबई थी, गिरगांव, नायगांव, माझगांव बचा हुआ आधा गांव. तो 3 color thread. Then after couple of years they started color tags. Then you told na, plus minus symbols. Then ABCD. And from 76 this is going on. So that is about gradual change in coding.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. I mean, now, in case you guys ever wondered where you were reaching, what was happening, you'll now have an idea behind it. So great. Bachi, for you, I want to ask you a question because, again, coming from the fact of wells, right? And we spoke about this. In fact, they survived the 1896 plague, right? And they were so common across the city. How did the wells primarily affect the civic life of Bombay? Or let's talk about the well in your book. How did that affect the regular Bombay?
Yeah, sure. Well, wells were really your source of water when there wasn't piped water.
Correct.
And even when there was piped water, the iffy water systems of BMC, which are still there, a lot of people, if you remember, I know when I first came to Bombay, like in the 70s, you would see all these, garas, bullock carts, all lined up outside the well, and they'd be taking in those big handis. Then I have a friend, Umaima, who told me that, when they used to live in the fort, they used to load their car with, whatever buckets and pails and everything that they had and go and fill water from the well. The Bistis would also go and fill water. So today it is, for, Parsis or Zoroastrians only, but, we'll talk about why, but in the old days, anyone could really go and get that water. And I think what is very special about this well is that it has been both a spiritual anchor to a very tiny community and has also slaked the secular thirst of the larger city of Bombay, right? And the well it's like a metaphysical space. It's a sociological space. It's like the equivalent of the temple, which used to be the temple square, which is where people gathered in the evening. The women all gathered at the well, and it was like their space. It was like their third room, what Ismat Chiktai called the third room, where women have to disappear to find themselves. Well, here they kind of were away to gossip and do everything else.
They spilled the tea, as the people say.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
And then, you spoke about the East Indian well.
Yeah.
And I think even in Parsis, like the Parsis, every Parsi home and the bags, they had a well, because the well was important for practical purposes, for devotional purposes, for ritualistic purposes. And every night, at dusk, you would light, the well had a little niche, has a little niche where you light your diva. And you don't disturb the spirit of the well after dusk. And in the old days, you had the well was also positioned very close to the kitchen for practical reasons. But there was always that door which had to be kept open because that fairy of the well needed free access, up and down. And I've got this lovely story of Shahnaz Kama in the book that her great-grandmother was very tiny. Thank goodness someone was tiny. And so she used to really need steps to climb up to her four-poster bed. But she was considered, very, very spiritual and had a kind of a direct link with the spirit of the well. And so she used to have her bedroom right close to the well. And by mistake, some new maid shut the door at night. And that door started banging furiously, waking everybody up, because the spirit of the well was very angry and said, "You cannot have your sleep if you have shut the door." And after that, nobody ever forgot to shut the door. So it was that, and I guess tanks, water. You couldn't do without water, And before you had piped water, you had to have water from somewhere. And like there are supposed to be about 18,000 wells still here. And can I just tell you the story behind the Bhika Bairam well? Because is that, can I say it now, or is there a time you want me to say?
No, you can say it.
Okay, so it really was a dream project. So this gentleman called Bhika Bairam Pandey, he was third generation who had come from Bharuch to Bombay, and then by then he was pretty well off, and then he got this voice in the dream which said, "Go and build this well, build it at this specific point." And he said, he went to, and he told his wife about it. And his wife said, don't be ridiculous. Don't eat so much at dinner. You've just it's been a bad dream, because how can you build a well which is right next to the sea, it's only going to produce brackish water? But he still went and he kind of asked around. Then he forgot about it. So that voice came back a second time. And so this time he got a bit worried. So he went to the British authorities and said, please, can you give me permission to build a well? And they kind of laughed him out of court. And when they realized that he said it from a dream, they laughed even louder and said, oh, this mad Bawa, and what the hell, etc. And so again, but he was like really, really distraught. And he was like a kind of, beginning to sort of, his business was suffering, etc. And then the third time this voice came again in the dream, and this time it was like it brooked no nonsense and no refusal and said, or else, almost. So now again he had this problem, again no one was willing to give him the space, but his business was suffering, his social reputation was suffering, because by then people said, oh, look at this eccentric man, he wants to build a well, and this brackish water. But he just went ahead, and his wife said, look, please go ahead and do it, damn it, and get on with your life, okay? So he went, and of course the miracle, well, that's the miracle that's associated with it, that as soon as the pickaxe struck ground, sweet water gushed out. Now, we like to believe that, okay, sweet water right next to the brackish well. But subsequently, there have been articles where there are a lot of wells in the fort area, which was like close enough to the sea, and which do have sweet water. In fact, a colleague of mine did a piece the other day about how there's a well in the Khadi Bhavan premises, which is in fact a sweet water well. So then this well came up, and then, during epidemics, plagues, when other water sources were contaminated, this water was still pure.
Correct.
And so they did draw water from it. I'm sure it was not the only one, but it's part of the mythology, and let's just believe it.
Yeah, I know, because we used to walk down. I think we used to play cricket at Oval Maidan, and we walk past this well, and people would be venerating it. So now we get why, right? I think it's a venerated well. But coming to Simon, you showed a very nice photograph, of the lady breaking all rules, right? And of course, there are like 15 of them, and very hard to follow sometimes.
20
right?
commandments. 20 commandments.
20 commandments, correct. But the thing that, of course, talks to me about Irani cafes is that certain things that when you enter an Irani cafe, you just know it, right? Checkered floors, spaces with, those chairs. Now, how did they kind of define the, let me say, the artistic or cultural spaces back then, during that time? Like, when you entered Irani cafe, you knew it. What were the elements that truly made like an Irani cafe in the way of architecture?
Well, so for some place like Matunga, which was like back of beyond, and then there was just like Dharavi, which was like, they said, like jungle crowd. It was like Irani was the place which had a mirror, which had some soap, which had the, where you could brush your hair. So it was all that kind of deportment, bodily things that the cafe allowed you to do. So these are not fancy spaces in that sense for a certain lower middle class person. These were really the spaces, to look forward to in some sense. And the rule board, they say, came in the 1960s. And that is Mr. Kohinoor's work of Britannia and Company, who passed away a couple of years ago. I'm sure everybody in this room knows Mr. Kohinoor. So he was a partner at Bastani and Company restaurant, which was at Dobi Talao, opposite Kayani, that shuttered a decade over ago. But in the late 60s is when he comes up with the 20 commandments of what I call gentrification. So, and he's very proud of it. So he tells you, I put all these rules down. But otherwise, yeah, people were sitting like this and sitting like that. And then he was like, that's why no leg on chair. And all the other guys were like dons. You know, they had bikes and they had chicks and they loved talking to me about all that. But Mr. Kohinoor, he was like a school topper. He took a taxi. You know, he had no such, he wasn't like a dude. And so he comes in as that gentrifier. He comes in as that kind of proprietor and says, not this, not this, not this, not this, and no newspapers. Actually, it means you can't bring your own newspaper to the shop. Not that you can't. Exactly. So people would come with 4 newspapers and have 1 cup of tea. So just do the math, you know, electricity, this, that, and that's how you think it's a dhanda, and you think in terms of, you know, you can't do 1 tea, 1 curry and 4 newspapers. So no newspaper. And then you don't want to sit like one with your leg like that. There are families there are women. You got to be respectful, you know. And then these restaurants become beer bars in the 70s and the 80s. And the rule no hard liquor allowed was because all that liquor they had in the beer bar was mild. It was beer, mild beer. So no hard liquor allowed means no Kingfisher Strong, no LP Strong. None of the strong beers even could, actually, because of the license, a full license is much more expensive liquor license than just a beer bar license. So, yeah, these cafes also change on their own. No one sort of talks. Most people think they're very static things, static icons that you have to speak about like this in some sense, but actually they become beer bars, they become permit rooms, they become dance bars, and to put it crudely, as my participants say, semi-whore joint. That was their favorite kind of byline. But that's it. I mean, Topaz and all these places in Grant Road were Irani joints, you know. So it's not like the dance bar is something else. The dance bar is only the Irani restaurant that has to become a dance bar in the 90s because things are not looking up for them. So
Actually, I think the modern cafe should have some of these rules, na? When she says no 1 chai and 4 newspapers, write the whole article sitting there. There was a New York Times article as to how you can spend exactly $5 and spend 5 hours in the cafe.
That's what was completely not allowed. Well, I'm agreeing with all rules. I think not combing hair is a bit extreme because you're like, yeah, I mean.
it's just that, yeah, basically all that hair would get, they say it's someone else's cake biscuit. You know, they used to talk like that. If someone else's cake biscuit can't have a, you know, hair coming up. So it was what it did to other people's food that was the main.
No, I get it. And in fact, you know, it's very interesting because while you talk about the evolution of it, they are also culinary institutions in a sense, right? I think we completely forget it, although now I think honestly, the food is not what it used to be, except for possibly a couple of spaces. But they were, and they kind of also had this hybridized sort of a food culture. Would you like to tell a little about what kind of food, how did that possibly change in a way in terms of what they originally were vis-a-vis what they became eventually?
Yeah, so in the 70s and 80s, you see the changes in food, and places like Ideal Corner on Gunbow Street and Fort, even Britannia and Company, start getting in a daily menu. So Monday, dansak, Tuesday curry, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday was something called Samundari Khazana, which was a combination of all these fish that Bacha Kohinoor used to go to Sassoon Dock and pick up in her Volkswagen and bring back to Britannia and Company. And she made Britannia's food what it is today, which is Mr. Kohinoor's wife, who passed away in the 90s. In the 80s, she comes in. At the same time that Ideal Corner at Gunbow Street it was a garage. It was a garage to fix bikes. It becomes this kind of place for the fountain crowd to come and get a quick meal. And you had like 3 options. And that's the change that happened in the 80s, like for a office crowd, you know, catering to them. And then there was Chinese introduced, which didn't do very well. And I mean,
all of that. But it's interesting. I think one of the few places I think we came to know about, if you didn't have Parsi friends and you weren't lucky enough to go to a Lagannu Bonu, you could still enter Jimmy Boy and wonder what it was, and think that how a Parsi meal is at a wedding, at least. I mean, not such a great version of it, but a version of it, right?
This Brabant restaurant at Metro, which is shut down, and the owner was Rashid Irani, a very well-known film critic. He was a liberal. He comes and makes it a beer bar, but his father's partners were really orthodox. So their big invention was introducing like keema for breakfast. But that was such a big deal for those older generation that when this guy came in and had this plan for beer bar, and he's sitting and writing his reviews, film reviews on the Galla, and all his culture vulture friends are coming, filmies, this, that, the senior partners were like, what is this? Women revealing their upper parts and crazy stuff like that. Filmmaker from New York who's a divorcee. And that's not what the senior partners kind of wanted. So, yeah, it's this kind of orthodoxy which I try to capture. So it's not my voice. I don't have a problem with these people. But the senior partners certainly had a problem with these liberal types like us, so.
Yeah. So interesting. Talk about change, Dr. Agrawal. I think, of course, we have super apps now that are available, right? And I know they're not a direct this, but have you ever collaborated with these guys like Swiggy, Zomato? Because they are also doing food courier service, just like yourself. Has there ever been like a collaboration between you all? It seems like a thing that...
It's happened because of lockdown.
Okay.
Yes.
Which we have to speak about. But so you guys did collaborate. Did you all collaborate together on the...
Because you must be knowing, or if you want to know about lockdown, so I will connect
of course,
both together.
I know that COVID was very hard for the Dabbawalas,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I mean, everyone was working from home even a year, after the lockdown started. So I'm sure that was an incredibly hard time for you guys. Can you tell her, I mean, that would be nice to kind of explore as the kind of challenge that you must have faced then.
Yes. So in lockdown, the position of globally. So because of start, 50% went to villages, remaining 50 were in Mumbai. And among them, 80% facing problem. So no local train, and without local train, they cannot travel. Once local train started, no people traveling. Some people traveling, but work from home only. But only delivery food were going on. Say you Swiggy, Zomato. So fortunately, they started to call these people to deliver. And even after lockdown, before Dabbawala start, after Dabbawala end the work in a day, morning, evening, they have delivery with them. So fortunately, income to some extent good, to some extent increased, but they are not competitors for these delivery system because they are collecting home cooked food. And they are collecting from hotels.
Correct.
So we don't say it's a competitor.
No, I agree with you. I think it's I was just thinking, and you mentioned COVID. How hard was COVID at that time? Like, what did the Dabbawalas then do? Did you guys take on the people in the association, take on different jobs? What were they doing? How did they supplement their income?
Villages, mainly. So they are basically from farmers. I told Pune Nagar district. So they have their own homes over there, farms there. खेती बोलते हैं ना तो they started और उस समय में तो started suppose maybe भाजी वाला टपरी वाला चाय वाला so some of them started but thanks after COVID today I think they are quite good. I will give a very good example. So before COVID, not before COVID, sometime back, there were 50,000 school children were customers of Dabbawala. But then midday meals, then international schools started there to give their own food to children. But now, after COVID, so many schools, children are taking deliveries.
Yeah.
Then I'm very good to tell you that you must be knowing Muslim Boharis. So thousands of tiffin, maybe in Thane, some other areas, hundreds of Dabbawala engaged in their deliveries. So maybe supply chain reduced, but overall, if you say 200,000, I cannot give exact figure, but so figures are good.
Correct. Good.
And that's the reason you talk movie.
Correct.
I would must to, you will love to know one example. Sir, oh, Irfan Bhai ne, now he's not there, but we have 10 meetings. And they want to put one example, love letter. तो वो बोले साहब हमारे यहाँ कस्टमर की बीवी लव लेटर देती है लेकिन खुद के हस्बैंड को किसी और के मतलब दैट्स नॉट गुड ना सो आई विल टेल यू वन many examples I'm having, but I will give one example. Sir, आपको सुना होगा in tiffin, man, they were delivering, customer delivering maybe gold, silver, maybe money, sometime love letter. So when I done doctor on this subject, so I have many examples. I asked one customer, how you feel about Dabbawala? He told, भगवान है मेरे लिए, हिंदी में बोलता हूँ मजा आएगा सुनने में. तो बोला क्या हो गया? तो कस्टमर बोलता है सर कुछ दिन पहले मेरा अपनी बीवी से झगड़ा हो गया. Well, it's a common man. तो क्या हुआ? Next day morning, Indian husband, you know quality, बंदा टूटेगा लेकिन बीवी के सामने झुकेगा नहीं. और second got angry young man. So he scolded and told wife, divorce, I will not come back home. Morning he took bag and went to office. 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, Dabbawala came home. Indian wife, दिल के मानता नहीं. She delivered tiffin for husband to Dabbawala. Dabbawala delivered in office. In lunchtime, husband saw the tiffin. Morning, angry young man become the hungry young man. So he opened the tiffin. And when he opened the tiffin, on top of tiffin, written love letter from wife. Oh, my beloved husband, I love you, Lord. Forget what happened in the morning. Eat my food, it is for you. The message given by wife to husband, delivered by. अब खाना खाने के बाद husband को शर्म तो आती है. After eating food, he brought 2 cinema tickets, put in empty tiffin and returned love letter to wife. और शाम को दोनों मिल जाते हैं. तो मैं मैसेज देता हूँ, दो आत्मा का मिलन करने वाला.
Best. You save a lot of money on therapy, I must say. I agree with you. Yeah, agreed. But coming to you, Bachi, coming to you, Bachi, you know, talk about stories, and I know that the well has seen 300 years worth of stories, and you know, there's been such change over those times in the city. Would you like to, you know, tell us what kind of changes this, you know, well would have seen in its time? I think it would be fascinating, right, if it could speak to you.
I don't think the well has got stories like about the Dabbawalas, but I'm sure it has done some matchmaking in its time in the sense that it may have answered some prayers. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like the well has been really witness to the manifest, not just destiny, but destinies of Mumbai. And like it was the second oldest Parsi institution. Before that, there was one fire temple. It's in the book, but I don't remember exactly which one it was. Yeah, okay, correct. Okay, yeah. And thank you. I have a very enlightening audience. And so then, you know, it really saw the whole development of Bombay. You know, 25 years after it came, the dock was built. It was, of course, far away from, you know, the Taj, but it could sort of hear the sounds of the Bombay house being built. The Flora Fountain, its beautiful neighbor, and once again, there again, a Parsi, you know, contributed a fair amount of the money that was needed to build it. And since Simon is sitting next to me, the closest neighbor, the statues which have come up around it, and so Simon's great-great-grandfather, Mr. Aidenwala, well, Dinshaw, really, and so he was, I mean, the statue is there, but his father was really the man who realized the importance that Aden would get once the Suez Canal was built. And so he invested. He imported a whole dry dock from Britain. He had it shipped, and it used to be called the Dinshaw Pontoon. And he even funded a mosque. I mean, of course, he built the fire temple. That's expected. But he also funded the mosque, and it's known as Kavasji Mosque in Aden. And the interesting story about the fire of the Aidenwala temple, because that fire, once Aden then fell to communism and all that, I mean, there were no Parsis left. It was once a thriving Parsi center. And so that fire was then, I don't know, there must be many people in the audience who are old enough to remember how the fire was brought in the special plane of Air India with only Parsi pilots, and then, very ceremoniously, installed in the Agyari in Lonavala, right? And so that was that. So, I mean, really the stories that it can say are the stories of Bombay. Reclamation pushed it further and further inland.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you have actually got a chapter in the book that says if the well could speak.
Yeah,
to,
it's the story of the Kuo tells us his kahani, his
How nice.
remarkable kahani. On a day when the worshippers have gone, it's quiet, and then she, if you like,
Yeah.
since the spirit, sits down and tells me all the stories
How
that it
nice.
has been witnessed to.
How nice. Must pick the book up as soon as this talk is done. Simin, I have a question for you, and it's a little bit of a morbid question because it talks about the death of the Irani cafes and the decline that we're seeing. What do you think are the primary factors of youth? I know that some of them would be real estate, but anything else that you've seen? What else could be maybe a decline that's caused such a subsequent decline of it?
I mean, so I think it started actually in the 70s when things in Iran were looking up, the time of the second Shah, and there was prosperity. So they sold their restaurants, their corner restaurants, and invested in land in Iran. So you have a lot of them lost. Again, Gunbo Street, Lalit restaurant on the corner. Anyone familiar with Lalit on, yeah, my dad spent his whole life having idli dosa from there, but it was an Irani that in the 70s, the gentleman stayed in same fairy manor over there, decided to sell, go to Iran, buy land there, and it's been Lalit and, Mangalorean Christian, but whatever, Udupi, since then. So that was a factor. It's not commonly spoken about. There also in the 70s and 80s, you had a lot of labor disputes because of the strikes and everything else in Bombay. So all those labor became an issue and they couldn't manage them. And another community entered the Irani trade called the Chilias. They are Gujarati Muslims who were Victoria drivers, and they become taxi drivers. But they also had this motel, hotel business and a tabela business as well. So they come in and become partners and managers on contract and everything and start taking over. So Olympia on Kulaba Causeway, like they say, Chilia Dariwala. So they are primarily Sunni, but a few Shia. But the Irani say Chilia Dariwala has taken over, then it's like a Chilia joint now. So these were the reasons. And then I think a real reason is dispute. Every Irani restaurant will have a dispute between partners. And I mean, Bastani also closed because of a dispute between partners. So dispute is really a number one kind of reason. And then the one they say about kids and migration, Canada and all that. But really, I think these are the more, yeah. And in a way, like, if my book didn't have a dispute, which it did have, I'm so happy because now I know it's a real, you scratched it, there's been blood, and I've had a dispute, it's been resolved, and this book is coming out, and now I know it's a real thing. So dispute is very important for Iranis,
Thank you. Dr. Agarwal, I'm going to come and ask you something that you're personally doing, which is, with the Dabbawala Education Center, and, and you're doing some great work there. What is the Dabbawala Education Center, if you can tell people about that, in terms of what is the work that you're doing with the Dabbawalas there and their families?
So because of research, I came to know these people in future must use some technology. I know it's very difficult because as of now, one Dabbawala is aged.
Do you use any technology or nothing, right?
Something is there.
WhatsApp? No,
Yeah,
that's the only
WhatsApp
technology.
also some technology. IIT people come to just show them.
Yeah.
I remember some time back when IITian came and they told कि भाई इसके पीछे जो when you open tiffin you can put chip over here. So customer will come to know where tiffin is traveling. मैंने बोला भाई मत करो ऐसा. क्यों? ये टिफिन लेट होता ही नहीं है तो why you want where is traveling? Anyway, so, but when I told Dabbawala, you should learn little bit computer. And I know, Ma'am, today one Dabbawalas is 89-year-old. Can you imagine? So I told, why not? You learn. So I started that. See, this is computer center. I told 1 year I was taking a lot of efforts to bring them to learn computer. But after 1 year I got idea. In my school I made wooden local train. In every coach I put PC. Invited Dabbawala. They told, oh, it's a local train. Now we will come. They feel they are running a local train. So atmosphere. The reason behind this, tomorrow they can use app. Then even English. They should know little English. Good morning, tomorrow I will not come. And fortunately, no, not like that, but so good thing happened and started, and youth, I think today no need of learning without the mobile guys using, but something they should learn. And sir, hua kya hai na ki, despite of so many long journey, they want to eat home cooked food. So it's good that is starting this. And sir, it will go for a long time, 100%. बोलते हैं ना, खाना कभी बंद नहीं होता है.
Correct.
और sir, I know people worried how they will survive this, that, because nowadays no one is there to cook food at home. Husband and wife both are working. तो मैंने बोला यार पहले husband customer था, अभी wife भी customer है, double customer. Why are you worrying? So why not Dabbawala wife come into cooking?
Correct.
I put proposal in lockdown. So क्या है sir, very quickly, I am not Dabbawala, but ऐसे कई Dabbawala है sir, delivering your grandfather, your father, and to you now. So when Dabbawala wives start to cooking, I think they will get good income in cooking food also. So we feel they should do that.
Wonderful.
So of course they will do it. It's a boss story, but I know time is constrained.
Correct. Now I think people will have some. I know that you have to leave at 8 o'clock, but thoda mushkil lag raha hai, boss. After this thing, I think a lot of people are going to stop you for leaving at 8. But my last question before I open it up to the audience for any questions, Simin, you are doing, Dabbawala, the Irani, the Zoroastrian Irani cafes are undergoing change. You have the soda bottle opener wala thing that's happening, and now you are consulting with Dishoom. Right? In what way are you seeing the future of these cafes in some way? Are you seeing this as the future where young custodians are coming in, taking these things and kind of like starting these things and writing those same? Like
I mean, it's a super hit in the UK, and there are, about a dozen Dishoom restaurants. Each is based in different time in Bombay's history. So sometimes they do an Irani cafe in the jazz age. Sometimes they want to do it in Swadeshi Bombay. So I work with them on creating those themes in the restaurant. But I think after a dozen Irani restaurants, now they have moved to permit room, which I told them is a nice way to move because the Irani only became the permit room. But here they're celebrating Bombay's drinking culture more directly. So I call them basically Chota Dishooms. They've it's a simpler format, and I think after 12 Iranis, they want now a little something different. So they're evolving in the way that the Iranis actually evolved.
I think that's amazing. Next time, Asad, we should do one on the prohibition and the the auntie bars. We should do that with the eggs outside and stuff. It'll be great. Everyone enters with an egg in their hand because that's how you could identify an auntie bar. Lovely. Thank you so much, all of you all. Thank you so much. You've been a great audience. But now we have... The floor is all yours. You have the panelists. If you have any questions, anyone here who'd like to ask any questions, and we can go around. Anyone?
My question is for Simim ma'am. If someone is starting as a guiding journey in Mumbai, and we have international guests in Mumbai, and we do guiding for them. So can you suggest me some good restaurants and some stories behind them so that we can explain?
Okay, so what he's asking is that he has tourists that come in from, various parts of the world. And the question is that if you had to kind of tell him, maybe let me alter the question a little, but if you had to say one, this is the Irani cafe, the greatest story, what would be the cafe and what would be the story?
No. I think these cafes are about neighborhoods, and you understand a neighborhood through a cafe and vice versa. I would start in Dhobi Talao. I'd start at Kayani. I'm not getting into the food. I have no comment on the food. I think anyone who's been there will understand that. But that was really the training center. So what Taj was to Goans coming Goan cooks coming. Kayani was to all the Iranis coming. It was a training center. So everyone was there. Then they branch out to different restaurants. You cross the road, you can still see Bastanis just, and looking through the grills. And it's so important because that's where the rules were formulated. So you tell them that at Bastani, this is where this man came up with these 20 commandments that have become so famous. And I'd do Dobi Dalao. And then maybe walk to Britannia and spend quite a bit of
Does that answer your question? Yeah, super. So, Kayani. Yeah. Sorry, you had a question at the back. Yeah. They're asking, the question is, how did Irani cafes become synonymous to Irani chai and bun maska? Because that's what we are always told to have. Is that your question? Yeah.
So, they only say, the Iranis only told me that, you keep the chai cheap and you keep the chai consistent. And then everyone comes for the tea, they know they can have the tea. And then everything else around it, you kind of work around. But bun maska and brun maska, brun would be the, karak bread. These partners would come, open the shop by 5 in the morning, go straight to the fridge, take out the butter, and do this tukra maska. So one partner is sitting for 1-2 hours in the morning, just cutting the butter into tukras for the exact proportion to apply to the bun. So it's that ingrained in their work routine. Getting the butter right, the brun right. So for kids, they'd put double maska for free, obviously.
Yeah. Double maska was like a full slab, I think. It was just mental. It's just mental.
Brun was had more with the light refreshments, meaning like with the chemo and all that. Bun is more sweet, like kind of, not necessarily savory. Not everybody did brun.
Yeah, so I have read in the newspaper that the heritage walk around Dabbawalas is carried on. So how it is carried on, so I want to join one of, I read in the newspaper, it is being carried on in Mumbai. Heritage walk.
There is a heritage walk that you're doing at the Dabbawalas, so he wants to know more information around that. He read in the midday newspaper that you guys are doing a heritage walk with the
पहले
Dabbawalas.
होता था, अब क्या थोड़ा वो time is change, so they feel risky or they don't want. So better we go and present rather than heritage walk.
So my question is about the Irani restaurants, specifically Britannia. So they've got number of forbidding rules, but they are quite partial to dogs.
Yes,
And on one occasion, Mr. Afshin, the current owner, actually wrote out the bill on the back of the dog who was reclining on the counter. So would you comment on that? Secondly, I thought they would be the owners of the property, but they're not the owners, and the owner is Maharaja Sindhia or somebody like that. So would that be a complication at some time, or?
No, so just your second question first. Because of the ownership structure, the Maharaja said no to liquor. So that's why they never had booze at Britannia, because the Maharaja's representative, Mr. Balakrishnan or something, said no, Maharaja will object to liquor license. So Bastani got a beer bar license, their other concern, but Britannia never had beer because of that. I mean, it's all leased property, it's all BPT property, so I think that would apply. And in terms of animal lovers, it was again Bacha Kohinoor, who is really the only woman character in my book, Mr. Kohinoor's wife. She was like, he said, animal lover number 1. And she found, and people would also leave animals there knowing that they'll look after them. And now Afshin's wife and her family run a little shed in Ballad Estate where they feed all the cats every evening from an area from Lionsgate to beyond. So it's in the whole family. You can go at 6 o'clock one evening and you can see them taking rounds. Her parents are on a scooter, they're in a car. The sister cooks all the food for the cats. Yes, and Bacha Kohinoor found this chick in the 80s, and that became Robin the Rooster, who's your logo, the Britannia logo, which is there's no greater love than the love of eating. And it's around Robin, lived for like 4 years. But she was, she had Robin on a rooster. She was driving her Volkswagen. She was abusing the taxi people. She was like a really powerful, she was a lawyer. And then she transformed Britannia to what it is today. Yeah. So she's, yeah.
Incredible. Okay, we have the last two questions.
So,
Sorry, could everyone hear that? Because that's, okay. So for me to translate that would take a while. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that and say that he's talking about the secularism in Wales. He's saying that there's segregation that's happened with an example of people claiming Wales bases religion. And he's talking about how he's talking about the future of this when it comes to possibly the secular identity of Wales. Do you... Will they exist in their...
Yeah, but you see, water is now again the biggest dividing factor. Because every time you read about some Dalit who's gone in, and at the same time, at one time it was the most meritorious act was to build a well or to give water. And in fact, when Bhikha Bairam built his well, then it was really a communal, it was not a community thing, it was communal before communal acquired pejorative overtones. And he, in fact, not only built the well for people, but he also has the animal trough next to it, because in Zoroastrianism, all life is important. So, Mohammed, I'm afraid I don't have an answer to your question, but I would only have the ideal answer that I hope somewhere along the way, which is a very, very, very big ask, because we seem to be going in the opposite direction, that people will see sense and say that, well, water is for everybody. And I won't even go into the industry tea, because I also kind of feel that, because God knows I might get arrested if I say anything against all this. But really, punya, when I could have put a bird water, for the birds, my Bhai said, ye to sabse bada punya aapne kiya hai. So, I think to deny water is to deny life.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. A last question before we end. Do we have one more question? We can take a couple more? Okay, great. Yeah, okay. There's aapko repeat karna hai? Correct. So the question that being asked is that what is the insurance? Because the Dabbawalas do very high risk job, which is, physical labor. If there is, they carry labor, if they have back issues or they have, they fall the train, they could fracture themselves. Does the Dabbawala provide any such medical compensation for them? How does it work with insurances?
Last 20 years, they are into this. The group insurance they are taking. So not at company-wise, but the grouply they are taking. And they take care of it. Otherwise, as far as they are, sir, risk is there. But no one is worried about risk because they take care. And Mumbai to sir, Dabbawala, paperwala, dudwala, machiwala, bhajiwala, like that many are there. But I think they take care of themselves. How I can be more safer to my job.
And also to answer, I think one of the things that they do with train is one of the big things, right? The dabba, during the Dabbawala hour, there's a dabba that's kept for the Dabbawalas to transfer in the luggage compartment. So that kind of just, the government actually kind of allows you all to have one.
You're right.
I'm correct, right?
Yes.
So I think that also kind of minimizes it because no other people are allowed in at that hour except the different.
And एक काळजी घेतात. Suppose 40 means 50 kg. So an older one, the younger one helps like this. So take care.
Okay, the last question. You have. Last question. I'm going to ask someone right at the back. Okay. Okay, this is something is new to me. But the question is that Dabbawalas used to come to your school, and then when the 26/11 attacks took place, their school actually said no to the Dabbawalas because it became a security threat. This is the first I've heard of it, so it's interesting. Did something like that happen? Was it something that happened across?
Sir, have you heard any time that something happened wrong? Not at all.
No, never.
And sometime it is started. They started to take their tiffin through scan, even ACP, DCP they started, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
The reason behind this, when they take customers' tiffin, maybe school child or other thing, so they make investigation. If you ask to start them to collect my tiffin, they will investigate some weekdays where you are coming, where you are staying, how you are doing, what you are doing.
Oh.
And when they're satisfied, they will start to collect your lunch box.
Correct.
And they don't allow, even when Prince Charles came,
Yeah.
you know.
Correct, I know. This
Prince
is a great
Charles
story.
not allowed to touch original tiffin.
Yeah.
We make dummy tiffin to show
Correct.
Prince Charles.
Correct. And I
That much they take care.
I also heard Prince Charles had to actually change his schedule to accommodate the Dabbawalas and wasn't the other way around. So well done. We got one on them on this one. Yeah, good. You have another story? Yeah.
Just to show how iconic Dabbawalas were for Bombay, is that when the Oberoi, the big one, the towers opened, then in the lobby they had this actress who would circle the lobby in the Dabbawalas cycle, carrying all the dabbas. So that was the inauguration of the Oberoi.
Incredible. No, it's lovely. Thank you. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
This is interesting that you guys do a recce of the people before. This is like serious undercover stuff. Yeah, but amazing.
But, I'm here.
Are we okay?
All right.
Thank you,
But
guys.
To add to the Dabbawala stories, I don't know anybody read in the Times today how the Dabbawalas have gone international. And in London, so watch out, Dishu, 30 pounds for 2 vegetarian meals being served. And there was a Canadian figure, which I don't remember also. But thank you, so guys, for such an interesting discussion. Dr. Agrawal, Bacci, and Simin, and Harshvardhan for so skillfully moderating the session and not taking us on a walk. But thank you to our partners.
That's for the next.
Thank you to our partners, the NGMA, Nidhiji and Shruti for always hosting us, and the Kalagaro Association. And thank you to this wonderful audience. You know, I thought that rain that came at 5 o'clock, we lose half our audience, but you all are here in great numbers, and thank you for coming back. Our next edition of Icons of Bombay is going to be, I think, on the 2nd of or the 9th of July. We're still working that out. And it's going to be on fountains, BST buses, and street food. But before that, we are starting a new series at the NGMA. We're going to explore the rich design styles that have shaped Bombay's distinctive architectural identity. And our first episode is Motifs, Materials, and Markers of Indo-Gothic Architecture. And if any of you all are free this weekend, we have a wonderful concert at the Opera House, Oganewali. To find out more, just stalk us on social media like normal people do, or visit our website. Thank you very much for being here, and have a wonderful evening.
Before you end,
Haji.
I brought one token of love for this guest.
Oh, wonderful.
I brought small lunch box.
Ah!